Hello, I'm Tim Black for TBTV. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this content, subscribe to this channel and become a Patreon where you can help support keeping this channel growing. Stephen Miller is a senior policy advisor at the White House. He, at a press conference yesterday, made comments about Donald Trump's support for a Senate bill that will fundamentally change our immigration approach.
Every year we issue 1 million green cards to foreign nationals from all the countries of the world, but we do so without regard to whether that applicant has demonstrated the skill that can add to the U.S. economy, whether they can pay their own way or be reliant on welfare, or whether they'll displace or take a job from an American worker. And as a result of this policy, in place now for many years, we've seen significant reductions in wages for blue-collar workers, massive displacement of African American and Hispanic workers, as well as the displacement of immigrant workers from previous years who oftentimes compete directly against new arrivals who are being paid even less. So it's a policy that's actually exacerbated wealth inequality in the country in a pretty significant way. We're proposing to limit family-based migration to spouses and minor children. Additionally, we're establishing a new entry system that's points-based. Australia has a points-based system, Canada has a points-based system, and what will this system look at? It will look at, does the applicant speak English? Can they support themselves and their families financially? Do they have a skill that will add to the U.S. economy? Are they being paid a high wage? The last part's very important because it will help prevent displacement of U.S. workers. So if a company, let's say, they're offering 3 times the median wage, that person will get more points on their application than if they're being offered 2 times the median wage or 1 times the median wage. So all of a sudden, you're putting upward pressure on wages instead of downward pressure, and you're making it very hard to use immigrant labor to substitute for American workers, because by prioritizing higher paid workers, you basically end the practice, more or less, of being able to seek out permanent residents to come in at lower pay. This is what President Trump campaigned on. He talked about it throughout the campaign, throughout the transition, and since coming into office. This is a major promise to the American people to push for merit-based immigration reform that protects U.S. workers, protects U.S. taxpayers, and protects the U.S. economy, and that prioritizes the needs of our own citizens, our own residents, and our own workers.
He says, the more that we as a country have a national conversation about what kind of immigration system we want and to whom we want to give green cards to, the more unstoppable the momentum for something like this becomes. So what is he talking about? See, Miller is not talking about the typical conversation about immigration, which is illegal immigration, where we're talking about building walls, electric fences or see-through walls or trampolines, whatever the hell. Like, that conversation is totally different. He's talking about legal immigration. He's talking about green cards and how people come into the country legally. And he says that needs to be changed. That needs to be modified because what's happening is American workers are being displaced. American workers are being disallowed to get jobs because those jobs are being filled by people coming over to this country legally. Now, I know first the knee-jerk reaction to that is to say, wow, this is totally contrary to what America says they stand for. And I can get where you say that, get that. That's, you got the Statue of Liberty, and I think Acosta, he made a comment about that during a press conference, one of the journalists. But I think if we don't have this conversation, try to really wrap our heads around it so that everybody understands, because that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it, I guess it's the neoliberal thing, globalist way where, there's no borders. What's a country mean anyway? It means nothing. We're just all here on God's earth. We should all be able to go and work wherever we want. Okay, so I believe in neither one of those. Because I believe that America is so fundamentally screwed up in so many ways for so many people that we need to deal with some domestic issues. Because I believe we have a finite amount of resources. that we can't just continue to bring people in without being able to take care of the people that are here. I believe that's something we need to look at. And then I wonder why so many people who call themselves liberal or progressive or supportive of black people and Latino people and poor people, why these people are the main people who don't seem to understand at all that there are people who are struggling like hell in this country. And more green cards and more immigration doesn't help them at all. I'm not talking about deporting people. No, that's not what this conversation is. This conversation is not about me saying we need to kick people out the country. This conversation is about who can come to the country, new people who haven't came over yet. Should those people be able to come in when these people that are here are struggling? So Stephen Miller, who previously worked for Attorney General Sessions in the Senate, said he expects polling numbers in battleground states to increasingly show support for the bill as the public becomes aware of this new proposal. So what is this new proposal? Well, it's called the RAISE Act. It's by Republican senior David Perdue of Georgia and Tom Cotton of Arkansas. It's a green card reform and a Reforming American Immigration for a Strong Economy Act, or the RAISE Act. Okay? So what I know about the RAISE Act so far is that if you're already here, it doesn't affect you. If you're here, you know, you will be grandfathered into this issue. You will not have to address this issue. If you have brought your wife here, or your kids here, or your husband here, your grandmother here, whatever you've done, you are here. This is about going forward. I believe that the people who are most staunchly opposed to challenging the immigration laws we have as pertains to green cards, as pertains to legal immigration, those people don't have to compete with people coming over the country to the United States and getting jobs. And I think up to this point, if we look at the data, we'll see that there are a lot of people who are not benefiting from the current structure. And there are people who are suffering under the current setup. For instance, immigration labor that substitutes for American workers. Immigration labor substitutes for American workers. For every person who immigrates to the United States, that person, if they get a job, that's a job that would have obviously or hypothetically been taken by someone who was already here in this country. That's an issue when you have high unemployment in certain key locations, and generally speaking, but particularly in key locations where people are struggling to find employment. The Uber economy is failing all people, particularly black people. We're not winning at this. In fact, we're coming in dead last. So if you say that you are an ally of the black community, but you do not take into consideration the fact that the more immigration that comes in, we're the ones who are losing jobs to them, that when other nationalities who come in, even if they have brown skin, they are leapfrogging over us, leaving the black community on the bottom. And if you don't think that's a problem, and if you're not just as up in arms with me for bringing up immigration as you are with what's going on with the unemployment rate, do you know there's like a 40% unemployment rate in Chicago and Michigan and Wisconsin and Memphis? Do you realize that amongst black folks? Not amongst Latinos, not amongst whites, not amongst Asians. I'm talking about black folks. Not black from Nigeria, black from Maryland. Not black from Ethiopia. I'm talking black from New York City, Memphis, Tennessee. That type of black. The Brookings Institute did a study back in May 2016. I'll put the link in the link description. They were talking about something called, they say an estimated 3 million young people are disconnected and are disproportionately people of color, and the majority are aged 20 to 24. Young black adults 20 to 24 have the highest rate at 17%. It's 13% for Latino young adults and 11% for females, 11.5% of the foreign born. So what is that, Tim? What is this? Disconnected. Disconnected is when you are neither employed or in school, and you make no money. You basically have no income coming in. That's your Chicago. That's your Detroit. That's your Baltimore. That's your DC. That's your Memphis. Are you with me? What is your solution for that? And do you realize when you bring in competition who leapfrog over these people for jobs, you're not an ally to black people? So you cannot use, to me, like what they try to do is typically they try to use this thing like, Tim, well, you should understand how they feel. Why should I understand how they feel? Americans built this country. Black Americans built this country. Slaves built this country for 400 years for free. And now you tell me that if I don't understand why someone from another country should come over on a green card, like if I don't understand, accept that I'm somehow selfish? I think it's selfish not to look at the data and realize that black people are getting screwed and have been getting screwed for years and years and decades and hundreds of years in this country. But let's go on. Because I know a lot of people are saying, Tim, what's this thing about? So why do you think you're going to be competing with these people? Well, let me show you. New York Times. Now, I know some of you are not going to like that it's New York Times because we know, they tend to skew liberal and skew Hillary. But here's the article. We'll judge this article on its merits. Black workers suit accuses job agency of favoring Hispanic applicants. A group of African Americans workers filed a class action lawsuit in federal court against a nationwide job placement agency and several of its clients, accusing them of discriminating against black applicants by favoring Hispanic applicants. What we have seen in this industry is that this is a more widespread phenomena than what we have just found in this case with this company. The staffing agencies follow the requests made by the client companies, even if they happen to be ones that might exclude people based on race. Immigrants coming to this country, Latino in this case, come to this country, and the employers want them over blacks. Do you see how problematic that is? We're in this country. We built this country. This is the reason why I say, and I've been saying, you can't just leave it up to the market to make sure that all Americans get a fair shake, because all things being equal, there are people in the market who will not do the right thing, will not do the unbiased thing, will not do the non-discriminatory thing, will not do the ethical thing, or even the legal thing. This is not rare. This happens. Americans are suffering high unemployment numbers all across this country. Where is the concern for that as it is for immigration, for legal immigration? Once again, we're talking about legal immigration, not illegal. Now, I'm not suggesting that the RAISE Act is perfect, but I like the fact that it addresses an issue that is important to the black community, which is the most marginalized of communities in this country. There is no other group of people in this country who have it worse off monetarily, as far as equity, as far as ownership, as far as housing, as far as employment rate. No other, whether they've been here 2 minutes or been here all their lives. Now, once we start addressing that as an issue and we start from that basis, then we can have a conversation. But what I'm seeing is people that just want to feel good about themselves. You know what would feel good, I think, as well? Is if we were able to get these young people in these cities that you say, what's going on in Chicago? What's going on in Detroit? What's going on? What's going on is people don't have jobs. And if people don't have jobs, and if they get a conviction of marijuana, well, then they have a record. Now they can't get food stamps. So they can't get a job, and because now they got a record. They can't get food stamps. They can't get public housing. Some of them can't vote. Do you understand what happens? This is how you get Chirac. And you shut down the schools too. A lot of things. And you over-police it. So, the RAISE Act, I'm not saying it's the answer to everything, but I think, I know, I feel, I believe, and I don't care who likes it or don't like it, I believe that the immigration issue is more than just about illegal immigration. I'm not talking about deporting people. I'm talking about the people that come in, and what do we do with the people that are here, the people that have been here, that have been working in this country, building this country. And if you are an ally of me and of people that look like me, right, if you are, and you are Latino or you are Ethiopian or you are Australian or whatever you are, wouldn't you be concerned with how America treats us and what's been done to us and how we haven't gotten a fair bite at the apple? Just a question. And to my liberal friends who feel similarly, appalled at the idea that a black so-called progressive would say, yeah, we need to look at this. Well, I think that you shouldn't be appalled. You should be willing to dialogue and understand why I have this understanding, why I feel the way I feel, and why I say that data matters. And the fact that we have young people becoming disconnected with no form of income. We have largest metropolitan areas employment by race echoes and sometimes amplifies national patterns. White teens have the lowest unemployment rate among teens and young adults, while Asians have the lowest rates among prime age adults. Read the reports, become educated, and then understand why I say to black people, do not give your vote to any candidate who does not have a plan on putting black people to work. Do not. I don't care if it's Kamala Harris. I don't care who it is, because that's what's important. Unless you believe that crime comes from genes, not from means, then we need to make sure people have a way to support themselves. Contrary to what you think, employers are not just hiring the best employee. It's not always done that way. I'm Tim Black for TBTV. Subscribe to this channel and feel free to write me at tim@timblacktv.com. I'm sure there are going to be people that disagree. I'm not talking about how you feel. I'm not talking about the emotional aspect of it. I'm telling you, you should be just as emotional about the 40% of black children who live under the poverty rate. I don't care what you say, because I know if 40% of white kids lived under the poverty line, there'd be fires in the street, there'd be bombs blowing off, people be throwing bricks out their window, it'd be bedlam, it'd be mayhem, it'd be carnage. It'd be like the purge was going down. And you know it. The only reason why it's been allowed to happen because it's black people. So people say, well, they don't work hard enough. They listen to the rap. And I know it's not everybody, so I'm not talking to everyone. I'm talking about the condition of our country. I'm talking about what's going on. I'm talking about reality. Now, some people are going to call me racist for even bringing this subject up, but it's important to be brought up. I'm not racist. I'm looking at the reality for our most marginalized people in this country who are supposed to be your brothers and sisters. So how about you put your shoulder against the boulder with me and we push together? I'm Tim Black. Send your mail to tim@timblacktv.com. I'll see you on the next one.